talk about how we can increase our chances of winning the conversational lottery. Just for context, I'm bringing you behind the scenes, totally behind the scenes, into a virtual workshop / group coaching lab that I'm leading with a group of faculty at WSU Tech that I've been working with and training for the last year and a half on how to create really engaging content. And so as part of our engagement, every couple months I jump in with a number of faculty to work on their content, their questions, and specifically talk about applications into their own world. And so by their permission, I'm inviting you into a couple pieces of this coaching lab. There was plenty of context that happened before and plenty of context that happened after. You just get to jump in and be a fly on the wall for a moment. This is an idea that I've been experimenting with lately, but the concept that people or any given conversation is a bit like a scratch ticket, where you ask a question and you get a response, and it's kind of like scratching off that first number. You get to see what you get in response to that. And the more that we scratch off, the more that we learn and unpack and understand. The problem is, I think, with conversation sometimes is we don't typically go into conversation with the level of addiction that we do a scratch ticket, the idea that like, there's a possibility that I could win right now. And so we like scratch off a couple numbers, and then we're like, eh, and we put the scratch ticket down. And there's actually a really wild fact I looked up that every single year, $500 million of winnings are actually thrown away, winning lottery tickets, because they saw that they didn't win the jackpot and they didn't look to realize that they actually did win $3,000 and they threw the ticket in the trash. And I think that sometimes we approach conversation like that, where we have this conversation, we're like, it was just a little chat there. And I wonder, this isn't a certainty, but I wonder how many conversations we treat like the half scratch ticket, that we were like one layer away from something really important happening, and then we toss away our ticket. So the whole foundational goal of the beginning of our session here is talking about and getting some characteristics for what increases the chance that you and your students or your staff win the conversational lottery. So with us here, typically I would do this as connection before content and split up into breakout rooms. But what I'd love to do is a silent first conversation and then a group conversation. And the reason that I want to do silent first is this idea that silence is one of the great arts of conversation. So oftentimes before we go to do connection before content, people who are a little bit more introverted are like, what do I do about that? And so giving them a minute to actually come up with their response and answer before sharing is really useful. So what I'd love for you to do, either in your brain or on a piece of paper, is thinking about this metaphor, this idea of the conversational lottery. If I made and you made a T-chart where on this column we wrote all the things that increased the chances that somebody had an amazing conversation. And let me elevate this a little bit. The concept is that when you're in a conversation, any particular conversation, you could meet a mentor, you could learn a perspective that changes your mind. You could just have a nice chat that actually uplifts you and gives you some energy for the day. You could have not such a great chat that really brings down your energy, etc. But most people who got married at some point had a conversation about it first. And so our speaking and our listening very much fundamentally shapes the world that we live in. And so what I'd love you to do before we share out is just in your own brain, can you list out some things that you would say increase somebody's chances of winning the conversational lottery? And can you list out some things that you think could decrease people's chances of winning the conversational lottery? So just a 1-minute timer to scribble some ideas on that. And then we'll just popcorn a bunch of them out, list some out, and I'll write them down here. Let's go increase first. Can we just popcorn out? It looks like Diana maybe hopped in here since we chatted, and so we're just listing out some things that increase or decrease the chances that somebody wins the, quote, conversational lottery. What do we got?
I put mutual interest.
Yeah.
Ask interesting questions.
Hey, that's a good idea. I should have thought of that. What else?
It's your body language or your focus on the individual.
Yeah, focus. Misty, you said something, I missed it.
Active listening.
Which
You're
is
like the person you're talking to.
Ooh, that's interesting, Janet. Interesting because, so it could increase the chances, although I remember Will, my late co-author, saying that he went to this fair, like kind of out in the country, with his son who was 5 or 6 years old, and there was a guy driving around in a golf cart with a big Confederate flag flying behind the golf cart. And his son was like, "What's that?" And Will was uncertain, right? Typically on a day-to-day basis, that for him, might not have been the person that he would have went and had coffee with. Fundamentally, at an initial level, did not like him, but they ended up having a phenomenal conversation about what that flag means to him and all this context. And so it's sometimes we mistake commonality for the ways that we win conversational lotteries, whereas I think a lot of the learnings happen by connecting people who are different with different perspectives. And they take away a very different idea that disrupts their current reality. Okay, go back to this. Any others for increasing chances of winning the conversational lottery?
I think the initial thing is being engaging. If you don't engage, then nothing starts anything. So just being willing to engage in the conversation.
Yeah, there's like the first chapter in Ask Powerful Questions, this idea of like, I'm actually willing to know you. If I don't have a willingness to know somebody else and I'm too busy and they're on the priority list, then see ya, right? There's also the engagement. I think the sequel to Ask Powerful Questions needs to be create interesting answers, right? So when somebody asks you, how are you? And they actually want an answer, you can say good, but you can also tell a story that happened in the last 48 hours that will provoke some curiosity and lead to something else, right? We've all been in conversation with people who are really fun and easy and light to have conversation with, and people who are like, you feel like you're a dentist and you're just pulling teeth the whole time. How about decrease, real quick?
Talking too much about our personal experiences.
Yeah, too much self-disclosure.
Too much noise around you.
Mm-hmm.
I think the body language and the focus then would be either way. You know, we talked about it with increasing, but if you are looking away, looking at your phone, you're not interested.
Yeah, how cared about do you feel right now as I'm just looking at somebody else, right? Yeah, okay.
Not being authentic to yourself, not being true to yourself.
That's a huge one. I'm part of a group, and the language they actually use is, part of their mission is to create human beings who are fully self-expressed. That language, the idea that a world full of people who are fully themselves looks really different than a world where people are walking around with 3 layers of masks on all the time. We could probably exhaust those lists more and more. The idea, though, is that there are levers. Like some of these things that we've just listed out are actually choices that we can increase or decrease our chances of winning the conversational lottery. One of the things that that could be really useful both for staff and students is making the same T-chart, sharing this same metaphor and idea, saying, hey, throughout the semester, I'm going to invite you into discussions. You're going to be having conversations with each other throughout. What are the things that increase the chances that you actually enjoy those conversations and that they're beneficial? And what are the things that decrease the chances that you have a really great conversation? And just as a way of like talking about process before you get into content. Because then at some point when they're in conversation and everyone's body language is facing out like they're ready to leave, Lynn, you can be like, remember that thing we talked about on day 1, right? Remember that piece that we listed out?